What's up, guys? Let's check out Symphonic Sketchpad from Red Room Audio. Hey guys, this is Stephen Malin, music composer for the screen, helping you to build a music composition business that supports your family. Today we're taking a look at Palette Symphonic Sketchpad, which is actually an orchestral plugin that was created 2.5 years ago. You might be wondering why we're talking about this today. Well, I recently came in contact with the creator of Red Room Audio, and we had an amazing discussion about this plugin, and it was really interesting to me that this is something that is not in the hands of every single composer out there. Now, many of you know about 8Dio, East West, Samples, and a ton of other companies that have these orchestral libraries such as strings, woodwinds, percussion, brass, but there's something really special about recording all of these pieces together and allowing composers to have a ton of flexibility whenever they're writing. So when I recently met Dicky Chepin, the founder of Red Room Audio, when I learned that he's a composer and that he created Symphonic Sketchpad as a way to very quickly write music that actually sounds good, I had to get my hands on this to try it for myself. So whether or not you're gonna play all of these patches as one giant patch, like a multi-patch within Kontakt, or you're just going to go to each individual one and stack them on top of each other, this is an incredibly fast way to write music that actually sounds good right out of the box. It has all the features, it has more microphone placements, it has the full orchestra, which is brass, strings, woodwinds, percussion. We have auxiliary instruments, which are piano, we have harp, a bunch of different mallet instruments, we have trailer sound design in there, a synth engine, a choir. It's this ridiculous bundle. It just has everything you need as a starting composer at your fingertips. So today we're gonna take a look at each of the patches and very quickly kind of what each one sounds like in context and how you can use the engine to get Hollywood style quality results in your work. So if we open up a fresh instance of Kontakt, let's load up Palette to see what's inside. So Palette actually comes in a series of packs, but the one we're talking about today is the Symphonic Sketchpad. If you'd like to add on to this, you can check out the Melodics pack, which has a lot of things like solo instruments and different combos of instruments. You can check out the Orchestral Effects, which has kind of aleatoric sound effects kind of stuff for each of the instrument groups, and then the runs and ARPs. Today, we're gonna take a look at Symphonic Sketchpad and what is hiding inside here. So you'll notice that within the folder, it's really organized. It's just 20 different patches. And so today we're gonna pile through each of those to hear what they sound like. You'll notice that some of these instruments have chamber beside them, which basically just means that they are smaller ensembles. So if we open up something like the strings chamber, you'll notice how it has the exact same articulations as any of the other patches, but it just means that it's a smaller size ensemble. So if we play something like the string chamber, versus a normal strings legato, which looks like this. You'll notice how it just sounds a lot bigger and fuller, but sometimes when you're writing music, it's important that you can choose between these two. So I love that they have those different options here. So I've just, in my session, I've decided to group those together, strings, woodwinds, and brass as chamber ensembles. That way, if I wanted to take my MIDI information that I wasn't necessarily happy with in the larger ensembles, I can click and drag them into the chamber. It just gives me more options that way. So besides the chamber, we have a string section, which has all of our different articulations for strings. So that means sustain, marcato, tenuto, staccato, spiccato, pizzicato, trills, whole tones, and halftones. So these are the kind of articulations you'd expect from any string library. And this is also true if we jump into the brass ensemble. You'll notice how it's the same types of sounds. The same thing with woodwinds, all the way down to things like the xylophone, where in the percussion, you can actually just choose between the different timbres, which is like your EQ, your envelopes. So that you got a lot of settings here. And this is a lot of fun to play around with. So let's take a minute. Let's pile through each of the sounds just to hear what we got to work with. First up, we have the chamber strings. The woodwind chamber. So beautiful. Next, we have the brass chamber. And you'll notice that whenever I play on my MIDI controller, I'm actually controlling everything with the mod wheel, the modulation wheel. So you'll notice on the screen, whenever I move this up and down, we're actually going back and forth between soft, pianissimo, and loud, fortissimo. That's a little bit different than a lot of libraries that focus more on how hard you play, called velocity. So instead of how hard I play, it's gonna sound the same regardless. But what's really neat is everything is attached to the mod wheel for dynamics. Now, that might feel like a negative thing if you're used to playing with the other style libraries, but I feel like it's a really musical way to play because it allows us to be very soft and loud and create very natural and musical crescendos and decrescendos, which I think is a really huge win. And now with any of these patches, we can also jump between any of the articulations very quickly by using key switching. Now I'm on a smaller keyboard here, so it doesn't make as much sense for me, but if you wanted to do that, you could move to the correct pitch on your keyboard. You can move to these little red keys, or you can just click on them and it'll move just as well. So for example, if I'm playing the brass, I might have the sustain patch, then I could move to the nudo patch, or even move to the staccatissimo. So it just allows a very, very creative and easy way to switch between each of those instruments. A couple other things we have on the interface here. We have an effects tab. Now, I'll be honest that all of these are kind of the default effects that you'd find in any contact instrument. Nothing super special there, but if this is your very first orchestral library, then I would definitely give those a try, mainly in the reverb arena or delay. Even in EQ, it just gives you a lot of options to make your sounds a little bit more polished. And the other item here that I think is really significant is the microphone placement. So a lot of libraries, when you first get them, you have to buy multiple tiers to get different access to the quality level of the microphones. But I really love that right out of the box, we have close mics, deca mics, and hall mics. So you'll notice that right out of the box, when I start playing, it's a deca mic. Also not super loud. So if you need to go up to here to the top right, you can drag the slider to get it closer to -0.1 or around 0. And to my ears, it sounds good. It's a nice balanced mixed sound, but it's not a very full sound. So what I would personally do is I would go over here to the hall. I would turn that up, turn the deca up, and then the close mic up. So we have 3 different mics working in tandem together, and I would personally take the deca and hall, drag them down a little bit. That way the mix is a little bit more close. Now, the only danger with mixing microphones is we now have multiple volumes to deal with. So a quick and easy way to prevent your audio from clipping is if you go over to your mixing screen. You'll notice in my stereo out, my master out, what I have here is called a limiter. Looks like this. I just have it set to -0.1 dB, which basically means that anything I play, even if it's super loud and peaking, as mine currently is, you'll notice how it stops it like a brick wall. It allows it, it doesn't let it go past that point. Next up, we have legato strings. We have short strings, and this is the spiccato section of the strings. I'm gonna be using those a lot, I can tell. Woodwinds, Just like any woodwinds, you have your shorts and longs, but we have a lot of different articulations here. And you'll notice that I'm not choosing between which of the members of that family I'm using. So I'm not choosing between flutes, oboes, clarinets, and bassoons, but rather it's just one big homogeneous mixed sound, all recorded together in a hall. So it sounds really great out of the box. You don't have to think about which instrument you're actually writing for, which is a huge plus. Moving on to brass, very similar. Sounds really solid. And then the percussion, there's a ton of different percussion here, starting with timpani. We also have, for some of these guys, such as the tubular bells, we can edit the EQ, the envelopes. There's a lot we can do. Tallies. I love that they took the time to kind of get the whole orchestra in there. It's a really solid xylophone, marimba. So we got all the board instruments. Moving on, hand percussion. This is a really cool addition here. We have cajon, djembe, bongos, and congas. There's a lot of good stuff. Super useful in just about any genre of music. And then they also tagged on trailer instruments. So these are the huge drums that you hear in trailers. So it's the large drums, snare ensembles, tom ensembles, just a ton of stuff. They even have trailer tools, which is a sound design engine. So in here we have crazy things. You hear these a lot, like Brahms. Hear this stuff all over trailers. You can get really crazy. Reverses, impacts. So it's just crazy to me that the orchestral side of this is enough. I would buy that just as is, but they also threw in the trailer, all these sound design tools, which are absolutely crucial when writing modern music for film, TV, games. And then on top of that, they throw in this beautiful piano. And it's not a close mic'd studio piano, but rather it's a hall piano. So this is the kind of piano that already has a really solid mix because it's recorded in a hall. So it's gonna sound really good on top of those strings, brass, woodwinds, percussion, all that good stuff. And the last few bits here, we have a harp. And I love they took the time to add a few of these extra articulations here, such as glissando, which is probably kind of a staple of orchestral music. But I love the engine here where you can actually hold one key and then hold the next key. It'll actually zip between them. Depending on which one you play first, it could go up to down or down to up. And you can choose the speed at how fast it does it. Kind of like that. And then the other articulation is called bisbigliano, which is a fancy Italian word. It's kind of like a tremolo between two notes. Next up, we have the choir. Now, I'm gonna be totally honest, this is not the best sounding choir out there, but the fact that it comes bundled in with the rest of this is just insane. Sounds really solid to me. And of course, using the mod wheel, jumping between your notes. It's just an essential addition to all of this. And the last, this is totally out of left field, but I love that they included it. It's a synth engine. So for those of you who don't own something like Massive by Native Instruments, this is an incredible way. It's a synthesizer, basically, where you can choose your different patches. So layer 1 could be something like a saw and a sine wave. And layer 2 could be something like a triangle wave. There's so much you can do with this by turning it into a pad, by maybe increasing the attack. so much that you can do with this, and combine it with the other elements, maybe as a synth bass or an arpeggiator in the background. You mix it all together with your orchestral music, you got yourself a really cool, polished track. Now, let's write some music using the Symphonic Sketchpad right out of the box, using the plugins as is, no effects. I want to see what we can do with this thing. Let's try. So I'm going to start off. Let's pick a nice, quick tempo. How about 140? So I can feel some strings like tigga 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 tigga. I'll try to show you the patches as we jump through here. That sounds good to me. And you'll notice down here in the round robin, I like to choose the random function. I think that gives us more of a realistic sound. I'm gonna turn the hall on, but I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit. In dynamics, you can turn it all the way up or down, it doesn't really matter. Depends on what you're going for, but I'm going to go for kind of this loud, bombastic trailer type sound. Here we go. I think I'm feeling dinga 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 da. So there we go. Let's take that. Let's quantize it. Let's have some fun. Cool. So usually when I have two bars that are already pretty solid, if we're doing repeating music like this, let's just take it, copy and paste it. I think I will slow it down just a tad. Now I feel some kind of brass something coming in, so let's open that up. That's a great place to start. Let's quantize that up a little bit. Let's get ourselves a fun track here. Got lots we can do here. A lot of cool stuff here. So you see how quickly I can come up with ideas if the sounds are really solid. I'm not going to quantize everything, but it just gives me a lot to work with. So that's the large drum ensemble. Let's get those in. Let's try adding some piano. kind of like the idea of just taking the piano and doubling what the low strings are doing. I like it. Let's keep that in there. Let's keep it going. I want to get some boards in there, so that'll be marimba, xylophone. So for this guy, he can use some volume boost. I might pair that with the xylophone. There's a lot we can do with this. So I don't want to use every single instrument, otherwise it'll just feel a little cheesy, but what I'm looking for are just some sounds that can help build the intensity throughout. The percussion, I like to make sure that I'm representing low, mid, and high frequencies. I feel like the Grand Casa is a great addition there to give it more intensity. That's solid. So where do we go from here? Well, I feel like we can add a bit more intensity, maybe with some woodwinds. Doubling some of what the choir's doing. I think that's a good stopping spot as far as the length goes. So let's take maybe the final piece here. We'll grab from the percussion. Let's see if we can find ourselves a nice cymbal. And you'll notice that I already used the Grand Casa from that patch. So let's just duplicate it, call that Cymbals. And inside the patch, we can go through and just load out cymbals. Let's see what we got to work with. I like that. That'll sound nice in that mix. The big moments. So what I'm going to do is drag this till it fits. amount of time to match all of them. So to me, this sounds like this could also make a really good loop for a video game or something similar. So we can put our looper bar on and watch what happens when we go to the end of the track. Cool, really from there, I'm just gonna light up my cymbals and we're basically done. So there we have a completed 30-second track using Symphonic Sketchpad and really just using the default sounds. The only thing I did was I added a little bit of reverb at the end and made sure that there was a limiter in place to make sure none of my audio peaked. So here is the final track. Here's what it sounds like. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this gave you a better insight into how you can use Symphonic Sketchpad in your workflow. If you want to grab a copy for yourself, make sure you check out the description below where there is an exclusive 20% discount for all of my viewers. So make sure you check that out and you add it today. Also check out the other videos which are floating somewhere above my head that you can check out other reviews that we've done recently. I'll see you guys next time.